Hello and welcome to Diminishing Returns. And it's our second annual Easter extravaganza in which we take a Christian festival and belittle it. So, this year we're looking at a rather fantastic film called Left Behind, starring Nicolas Cage.
Yes, not the Kirk Cameron original.
Well.
Oh.
Maybe.
What? Oh, shit, I didn't watch it. Was I supposed to watch that?
A bit of both.
No.
But I did.
Oh!
I did a little bit of extra research.
Ooh, Kino.
Oh. Alan, did you read the book?
The Bible, the good book.
the big book.
No, the Left Behind book. It's the first of a series of about 14 books. I thought that Alan would have done his bit for the research, but no.
I watched this shit film, alright, I did my bit. As a kind of broad statement, this film, compared to what we watched last year, which was God's Not Dead 2, Surely Alive, this film felt a lot less preachy, a lot less kind of obvious in its message, its propaganda Christianity message. But then at the same time, that left it feeling a bit kind of confused. I'm not sure what this film was trying to say.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Because it was, obviously, because you picked this, Sol, as our Easter special. So, you presented it to me as a sort of Christian propaganda thing. I think if I just watched this blank, I might not have got that message. Because this could just as easily be anti-Christian, I think.
Well, the book is one of these bits of Christian propaganda. Left Behind, the movie from 2000, the first adaptation of the book, which I watched, is one of these low-budget God's Not Dead affairs. Left Behind, the one we're mostly going to be talking about, is it's like a big-budget mainstream remake of that. I think it was made with a sort of all the Christians will turn up to it attitude, but hey, maybe we can get some mainstream people on board. I'd love to know. I couldn't find any word either way, but I'd love to know if the director and people like that are religious or not.
Well, just while you mentioned the director, I have seen this film before because of the director, because this is the directorial debut of Vic Armstrong, who is the second unit director on a lot of Bond films, and a stunt double who we will all have seen because he was Harrison Ford's stunt double in, I think, 1, 2, or even all 3 of the original Indiana Jones films. Back
He's
in
very
the
famous.
80s.
He's one of the few sort of stuntmen whose name I recognise, so he's obviously a very famous one.
Right, yeah. and this, I think he must be about 60-odd years old when he's making this film, but after a lot of years doing second unit stuff, mainly on action films, this was his first ever, feature film in the main seat. But as far as whether or not he's, a devout religious fanatic and all that, I have never come across any evidence of that, which I wonder if that's part of the reason why the film comes across kind of muddled.
He is English, not American, lest we forget. So English people don't really do religious fanaticism. Certainly not Christian ones. Not really.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few anomalies, but it's not.
They're mostly shouting at people outside Brixton Tube Station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do either of you know? Well, Sol, you seem to know a bit more than I do. What's the story behind the film? Then is there any more information?
I think the books were very successful. I think they made a lot of money.
They made about 15 of them.
Yeah, it's a long series of these things, and they made at least 3 of the straight-to-video movies based on the book series. I get the impression that the Kirk Cameron film is much closer to the plot of the book, just because it feels a lot messier and like chapter 1 of an ongoing thing that doesn't conclude in any way, and it feels a lot more young adult and like Harry Potter-ish. It just has a load of bullshit, like just nonsense that's like weird plot threads and things, whereas the Nicolas Cage one feels a lot more like a big standalone blockbuster. I'm not entirely sure how the Nicolas Cage one came about, I do think it was just pure financially driven.
One of the things, one of the aspects that there's a disconnect between the whole Christian propaganda thing and the movie is that we spend the majority of the movie with the people who are not the devout Christians. They are specifically left behind because they are not, believing enough.
And they are also specifically, as you would expect in any film, they are protagonists. We grow to like them. They do good things. They do brave things. They learn from their mistakes. All the things you expect from a character arc. So the fact that at the end they're still like, well, enjoy your purgatory, fuckers.
It's quite an anti-God message, isn't it?
Well, that's what it feels. That's what I mean. That's what it feels like. Because if we establish that this film takes place in a world where God exists and the good are raptured, and this is what's left. It's just like, well, these are good people. These are normal people. What sort of God would turn these people from his gates?
To me, this feels like a film made by someone who's quite anti-religion, but has to kind of pretend they're making a pro-religious film. It stuff like the one of the main women at the start goes up to someone in an airport who, like a mad Christian who's going on about this and that, and just shoots them down with a load of logic. And the film doesn't present it like, oh, what a knobhead. The film presents it like, yeah, take that, Christian. and so you sort of spend the rest of the film waiting for her to get her comeuppance and have some humility drilled into her and sort of have to kind of realise the error of her ways, and it never really comes.
Well, one of the things that I did read online was that they were trying to make a non-preachy Christian film, but it doesn't. I think in the only character, actually, I guess there are two, but Marty McFly's mum, she's sort of a positive portrayal of a Christian.
Is that award-winning actor Leah Thompson?
Oh, there we go. Award-winning, really?
She must have done. She's been around for years. In this, it's basically a cameo in this, isn't she?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I think she's a bit of a big name for them to be getting in. They spent all their money on Nicolas Cage, and after that, it's like, we've got nothing left. Well, we can get her in for a small part.
Well, they've got Chad Michael Murray as well. Bring in I was going to say youngsters, but he was in One Tree Hill, wasn't he? And I know him from the 2005 House of Wax.
I mean, I'm sure, they definitely could have afforded Leah Thompson as well. I'm not saying they couldn't. It's just that I doubt they wanted to spend the sort of money to, she probably costs enough that you only get her in for a couple of scenes.
They're not going to be making a film that has a significant part for a woman in her 50s or 60s. I mean, that's a ridiculous idea. So just put her in a small role.
She did seem like a significant enough face that she would turn up, 2 films down the line or whatever, and when we actually go to heaven and see where everyone is or whatever. Okay, so the closest thing we have to a protagonist is Nicolas Cage. And just talking about where...
Isn't the girl the protagonist? Nicolas Cage's daughter.
I was going to talk a little bit more about the director and where his impulse to focus is, because it certainly isn't on the religious side of things. And the things that are mostly... I think he mostly connects with here are, first of all, the random bits of stunt work that occur throughout the film, but also there's this story about Nicolas Cage has been cheating on his wife and he's not turning up to his birthday party because he wants to go and see U2 in London instead. Which, do you think they were raptured? U2?
Oh God,
yeah,
there's no way.
They're very godly. But I think what you're saying, Calvin, is that we flip between 2 stories, really, don't we? The one in the plane and the one on the ground, led by the daughter. And yet, as the film goes on, it becomes this sort of dramatic, oh, the plane, is it going to crash? Oh, is it not going to crash? Kind of thing. And the stuff on the ground kind of gets a little bit forgotten about until she sort of comes in at the end to help them out.
The stuff on the ground is basically she's out at the mall with her little brother, is it?
Yes.
And then he's raptured, and then everyone immediately starts looting.
Everyone goes
going nuts.
Yeah.
And then she's like desperately trying to get home, and we just have these vignettes of her running into these awful people, like crashing cars and shooting other people. And
is it this one or the straight-to-video one that I watched that has the guy on an aeroplane? As soon as the rapture happens, someone's like, "I've got to get out of here," and like runs over to the door and starts trying to open the emergency exit on the airplane, and then other people have to
I think that's
this
in
one.
this one. I think so. I don't know. It
was in one of them.
I stopped. I lost interest. I mean, it's quite clear from watching this film that Nicolas Cage filmed his scenes in, do you think 2 days? maybe less?
In a
he has
green
like one
box
scene with
with
his
a fake
daughter in the airport. He has one scene with his daughter in the airport, and then for most of the rest of the movie, he is just stuck in the cockpit, not really interacting with anyone else. And then much of the film is just... we get to know the passengers on this plane who all have their own stories to tell.
Yeah.
My favourite one being, at one point there's a woman who waits several hours. I think her daughter has been raptured or something, and then she just finds a gun from somewhere, I can't remember exactly where, and starts pointing it at people saying, well, what do you want? What do you want? And it's literally 5 minutes of her saying, what do you want? What do you want? And people saying like, what are you talking about? We didn't take your daughter. What do you want? What do you want? What does he want? And it's like 5 minutes of that. It's mind-numbing.
And there's a lot of, I reckon it's aliens. Aliens? Are you crazy? Hey, is it any crazier than what we're seeing right here?
Yeah.
I think they've all gone invisible. Whoa, that's dumb. Is it any more dumb than anything else? Yeah, because you can see the clothes fell down as if no one was there. It wasn't like an invisible person wearing clothes, you fuckwit. Jesus Christ, how stupid are you?
It's when they try to blame the Muslim guy.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a terrorist attack.
Well, this is actually... I mean, I did note that when the rapture happens, we're half an hour in to this film at that point. It's not like a particularly long film. So up to that point, it's just sort of building the character of Nicolas Cage, the daughter, and then that guy who's in it. And we're apparently expected to take from that half an hour that the daughter and this guy have fallen instantly in love and will do anything for each other. And now he's got to be mates with her dad.
Yeah.
It's a
Something like
stressful
that.
situation. A lot of relationships start in these sort of situations, don't they?
He's an investigative reporter. He's, finding the human story.
Yeah, who likes running around filming interviews on a DSLR camera without any sort of microphone equipment.
It's the best he could do at the Sean. Dub it in later.
Should we just hammer it home for anyone listening who's not familiar with what goes on? Basically, this film, what is it? Nicolas Cage is a pilot. There's his family. The plot just kind of ticks along. Nothing really happens for however long. And then what, 20 minutes in? Half an hour in?
Yeah.
The rapture happens, if that means nothing to you. It's this weird Christian concept that I don't think has any actual basis in the Bible, but it's very prevalent in contemporary America for some reason. And the idea is that at the end of times, when Jesus will return to earth and have a big fight with the Antichrist, it'll begin with all of the pure people worthy of heaven being ushered up into heaven, disappearing from earth, always depicted as just either them vanishing or often in cartoons they'll like literally lift up into the sky, but you always see their clothes just being left behind because they vanished, the body.
Everybody's naked in heaven.
Yep. Pure as in the Garden of Eden. So this film is basically that happens, and then all the people on Earth just being like, what the fuck? Which is quite a good premise for a film, I think, on paper.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically what's going on Earth after Thanos snaps his fingers, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the major difference being here, if we take the plane that we're sort of concentrating on as a cross-section of society, about maybe 10% of people have been raptured. Most of those are kids. It doesn't seem like things would devolve into looting that rapidly.
Yeah, I think in reality it would be probably even less than that. But even in the world of this film, yeah, it's the film seems to be made by people who acknowledge that very few people are kind of good Christians in this day and age.
Because that, to me, is the interesting part of the premise, like seeing how society would handle such a thing. I mean, we only see the immediate aftermath. I mean, the events of the film take place in, what, a day? Less?
A few hours.
So we don't get much, but in that day, there's lots of looting. There are lots of explosions. Society has crumbled. But I just kept thinking, like, there would still be a lot of people left. Presumably all of the Middle East is still there, because it seems to only be Christians that get raptured.
Yeah.
And babies, even, which is odd, because I don't know how a baby can be devout.
Well, you can't.
They're pure. They haven't been tainted yet. They haven't sinned yet, okay. I think. But it's only babies who've been baptized, presumably, isn't it? Not baptized, christened, presumably. Because otherwise, because in Catholicism, is this a Catholic film or a Protestant film?
Christian. So.
Because in Catholicism, abortions are so bad because the baby goes to limbo because they don't get to go to heaven because they haven't been christened. And if a baby dies before you christen it, it's like really bad.
The film really doesn't want us to question that. I think it just wants us to believe that everyone under the age of, 13 is just
Well, exactly what
gone.
age? Because the only kids we see are about 8. And they're very careful not to show any sort of 15-year-olds who could easily have indulged in a little bit of sinful behaviour.
Yeah, it's because the film never wants you to get into, God's a horrible piece of work, isn't he? Like, it never wants to kind of acknowledge that. But they're obviously aware that that's the case. So I watched both versions of this.
Yeah.
The straight-to-video shit original one doesn't spend that much time on the plane, from what I remember.
Really?
I don't think they really had the budget to do aeroplane stuff.
Well, surely that's where you'd stay if you had no budget.
It's fucking weird. It's so weird. It opens with the main character in the Middle East, Jerusalem or Bethlehem or something, and then a load of aeroplanes sort of just blow up in the sky, and they're like, "Oh, it's Israel v Palestine" or something, and then an old man, like a knight, appears and says something like, "Oh, the chosen one and the prophecy, and and then he's a news reporter. He's a news reporter, yeah. And he takes the news footage back to the newsroom, but then when he watches it back, the guy's not speaking English. And he goes, "Oh, I could have sworn he was speaking English." Anyway, then basically the film just gets locked into this weird thing about the rise of the Antichrist. There's this Russian leader who's played by a very clearly not Russian man doing this accent. "Yes, it is me, the leader of Russia. I am..." And he makes a big thing about world peace. "I think the whole world must come together to disarm our nuclear bombs. Nuclear bombs are responsible for half the world disappear." This kind of, it takes place in like this UN war room, most of it. They disarm the world, and then basically Kirk Cameron realizes that he's the Antichrist because, the Antichrist, he's going to be charismatic. People are going to like him, even though they went for like the cartoonishly villainous Russian man to be the It's absolute fucking bullshit.
"Upon each of you, I grant all the power and authority due to your new positions. You are now kings and queens in your own lands, bringing prosperity and plenty to your peoples."
Was it written during the Cold War then? It seems a bit...
No, I don't think so. That's it. It's a weird hangover from an old time, isn't it?
It says the first book was published in 1995.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's more recent than I thought it would be.
Yeah. But what I was saying with it seeming like it was part one of a young adult series is that there's just no plot. Like, that's basically the end of the film, is he realizes that this guy's the Antichrist and it's bad. And then it's like, presumably setting up films where they have to stop the Antichrist and things like that.
Well, there are 2 more films after that.
Yeah. Don't think I want to watch them, to be honest.
Okay, so I was thinking, this is a bit of a sidebar, but do you think if we have a look at his CV, can we work out exactly when Nicolas Cage stopped caring?
Ooh, good one.
Yeah, I mean, there probably is a point, isn't there? Because there was a point early on when he was really concerned with his career and
Exactly. My
image.
general view of his career is he won the Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas in 1995, I think it was. Very good performance. And then after that, he did a string of action films. Like it made him a big name, and he did The Rock, Con Air.
But that's it. But they were
all those.
They were a decent,
but they were good
selection
quality
of action movies. They weren't just that shit.
But that's the point when he started earning real money, like proper huge star money, and then he became dependent on the money. You know, those Tyrannosaurus Rex bones won't buy themselves.
I would say early 2000s is when he went downhill.
Yeah, I'm going to say Gone in 60 Seconds marks the point where he stopped caring.
I don't know about that, because
no, 'cause he did
Adaptation is a couple of years later.
Yeah, and Captain Corelli's Mandolin was, I think, a sincere effort. And Sunny, Winter. Yeah, you know what? Maybe
but
not.
But then, even after he does National Treasure in 2004, but even after that, he's done The Lord of War, The Weatherman, which are like genuine. Like,
well, he still makes
here we go.
good films now.
2006, The Wicker Man remake, and then Ghost Rider, followed by Next, National Treasure 2, Bangkok Dangerous. Here's the point. It's somewhere in 2006.
But I mean, he still makes good stuff now. He's still, he's just done Mandy. I haven't seen it yet, but people love Mandy. They're raving about it.
Yeah, I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying, when did he stop caring about the career and more about the money?
I don't know if it's ever been like that. I think he's always kind of done, not always, but I think he's been in a kind of 2 or 3 films for a paycheck, 1 film for me kind of rut for a while.
But it cheapens his own brand.
Oh, completely,
Going from, Bangkok Dangerous to, sorry, I'm trying to find something that I like that he's done recently, but I can't.
Well,
he did Kick-Ass shortly after Bangkok Dangerous. I know you're a big fan.
Kick-Ass is awful, isn't it? Yeah, it's a terrible film.
Oh, what? Oh, I like that.
I'm going back. I'm trying to. I'll find the last thing of his film that I saw that I could say was, all right. Just give me a second. I think I'm going back to 2005, 2006 to find anything worth messing with.
No, I don't know. If you look at his filmography now, he's done he had a voice part, so I don't know if it quite counts, but he was in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. He played Superman in Teen Titans Go to the Movies, which is definitely something he wanted to do rather than that's like a dream role for him. He did Mandy, like I say, which is, I mean, that was in all sorts of critics like top films of the year list. People love, like, it really went down well in a certain area. Mum and Dad he did a couple of years ago, which was mental, and that's, I don't think that was him just turning up to get a paycheck. I think that was him doing a project he wanted to do.
So how much money has Nicolas Cage got then?
I don't think
where does he put it? Yeah, I say exactly. What does he do with it? Because he obviously needs to keep earning it.
Bullshit, doesn't he? I think he's got several different alimonies to pay off, including one that I think as of yesterday, he's trying to get annulled.
Oh God!
I think he got married about 4 or 5 days ago.
No way, really?
Yeah, and then I think like as of yesterday, he's trying to get the marriage annulled because he was really drunk, apparently.
No.
He went to Vegas to do it. It's. I don't think
classic.
I don't
Cage.
think anyone could really claim it shouldn't be annulled. So that's where he's at now. But I think he's got a few marriages behind him. He's just got debts because he do stuff like he bought a castle from, I think, Germany or Austria, and then he flew it over to America brick by brick and had it reassembled.
Oh dear.
That's the sort of nonsense he does. He buys T-Rex skeletons and then turns out they were stolen and he has to return them to the museum, and presumably he's out of pocket for that.
There's some sort of tax issue. I'm just flicking through his Wikipedia.
I bet he's a big gambler.
Yeah.
He seems to like spending time in Vegas and casinos and things.
It doesn't seem like he'd be the best with money. And I spent £300 on a golden gun prop.
Oh man,
that is the equivalent on your budget. That is
the most Nicolas Cage thing you've ever done. Alan, what's the most Nicolas Cage thing you've ever done?
Ooh, okay.
What's the most right? Let's keep this easy. What's the most Nicolas Cage purchase you've ever made?
Ooh, that's good.
I recently bought an owl experience for 2. Does that work?
What does that mean?
I'm not entirely sure. The details were vague. But you basically meet some owls.
Were you going on a date?
No, it's not happened yet. Well, let's go back to the film.
Yeah.
Okay, so a big thing I want to mention, right? So a kind of principal character, this woman who's running around on Earth trying to, well, it's ostensibly she's trying to find her younger brother who disappeared in her arms. So it's not like he ran off and she can't find him, like a Madeleine McCann sort of situation. She knows exactly what happened, and she's just won't admit it.
And like
to herself.
everyone else on the planet's going through the same exact thing, which should really make her be a bit less,
She you think the idea was not, oh, I need to find him. It's like, oh, I'll try and understand what's happened. But then the big thing is, so she's running around, we're just getting a kind of a snapshot of the panic and chaos that happens when a small number of people disappear. Then she she goes to a bridge and she walks up this ladder. And I was thinking, oh, right, is she going to go and look around and we're going to get this panorama with buildings on fire or something like that? And then she's about to throw herself off and kill herself. And I was like, where the fuck did that come from? And why? Why is she doing that? There was no build up to it. There was no reason for it. It didn't fit her character. Could you explain it to me?
I think because her brother and mum had been raptured, and she obviously has no friends. There's no one else that she tries to call or communicate with, other than her dad and the investigative journalist she met for 10 minutes at an airport lounge.
It's ridiculous that in this film, once Christian God and religion is pretty much categorically proven to be real, people don't behave any differently. They don't, like, they behave, they loot and stuff. They think, oh God, I'm going to kill myself. They don't think, oh, hang on, if heaven and hell are both categorically real, maybe I shouldn't kill myself and go to hell or to
But she is saved at the point of killing herself through a phone call from that bloke she met earlier today who fancied her.
Yeah.
And that really picks up her spirits.
Well, then she knows that she has purpose. She needs to help them land the plane.
It can lift your spirits, that, when you get a message from a prospect.
Yeah.
Can lift you right out of a film.
Yeah, I love the bit when the rapture happens on the plane. Nicolas Cage is in the cockpit. He goes back in after it's happened, and then all the passengers like come and start banging on his door. They're all like, "Oh, we want to see the captain," all this stuff. And he does a very cowardly thing of like switching off the like oxygen in the plane.
Yeah.
Putting down the masks so that everyone has to return to their seats before they pass out.
But I think that's quite a nice idea. That's a good little. That's probably like what pilots are taught to do if you're getting mobbed by the passengers.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
take away their oxygen.
I just thought it was funny that, like, the passengers, first of all, thought that the captain of the plane had the answers. I don't know, maybe in that kind of situation you would behave irrationally. But just that it would have the star of the movie behave in such a cowardly way. Like, I was expecting the door to fling open and then he'd maybe have some, like, speech.
I quite like that. I think part of the problem is that, in terms of characterization, Nicolas Cage is not making any effort. I don't know what the character's thinking at any point, or like what he's going through. He's just saying words and doing actions. But yeah, I did find it interesting how easy it was to access the cockpit of this plane in a post 9/11 world. It's surprising, that, wasn't it?
Yeah. I can't imagine seeing this film, like, because this was theatrically released, and I just can't imagine paying and sitting, because the cinematography's terrible, it looks really dull and flat, and the music's horrible.
Well, can you remind me? Because I only watched this again for the second time a few days ago, but I've already pretty much forgotten all of it. But my notes about the Kirk Cameron one are basically that there's just no plot until the final 10 minutes. It's like this event happens, everyone flails around not knowing what's going on, and then eventually a bit of plot kicks in with this Antichrist thing, but it's only at the very end. Is this one the same? I mean, obviously there's no Antichrist, but is it very much just there's no actual plot, there's no conflict, it's just this mad thing's happened and no one really knows what to do about it?
Actually, one of the problems with this film is that the big drama of the film, which is this plane going to crash? Isn't it going to crash? Oh my God, what are we going to do about it? Which, like, the whole film needs to be built around, basically. It's a disaster movie. The drama of that and the whole ending is undercut by the fact that, hey, the rapture's happened. No one seems to be mentioning that. We've just had this happy ending where you saved the plane and you're all happy together. But you know what? The rapture's happened. Your wife and brother and the son have disappeared.
Yeah. Even if they all die in an airplane crash, we know there's an afterlife, so who cares?
That's
they're
it.
probably
It's
going
just
to hell, but
the main thrust of this film, the rapture, is never dealt with. It's never even on quite a superficial level in terms of like, oh, how would I be affected if my loved ones disappeared and I was left behind because I'm a sinner? But
it never gets into it on a level of, oh, I know they're up in heaven now. You know what, actually, one thing I will say in favour of the Kirk Cameron film is one of the characters is a sort of attempt at doing some of this. It's far more interesting than most of the characters you get here. One of the characters in that film is a priest or a preacher who is left behind. And so the whole thing is, what the fuck, but you know the Bible inside out. You know it off you could recite it word for word. And he's like, yeah, but that's not the same as believing.
That was in this film, not the Kirk Cameron one.
Was it?
Yeah, it was just like one scene where she goes and meets... Yeah,
no, he's like a main character in the Kirk Cameron one.
Oh, they do touch on it in this.
But like the fact that he's one of the main characters, I think that's more of an interesting starting point than most of the characters. It's not done particularly well. And ultimately, it's coming down on a side of, you've got to have blind faith. That's a virtue for some reason, which is just a bit like... But then, presumably, the second the rapture happens, he does believe in it. But it's too late at that point.
Too late. No loopholes.
So there's only one rapture, and then everyone else that's even people who weren't alive, everyone that's born after that, doesn't get anywhere near heaven.
I think you can still go to heaven if you die after that, if you turn your life around, presumably. But I think in theory, heaven and hell will kind of cease to exist in whatever form they take, because the rapture's happening and it's like end of times, and I don't quite know how it works.
Okay, so anything else to add about Left Behind?
I was actually quite disappointed after God Is Not Dead, which was quite easy to rally against and enjoy the badness.
I know what you mean, because this is in IMDb's bottom rated movies of all time, number 33.
Really?
And I feel like that's kind of unwarranted, because it wasn't that bad.
There were some bits where I had to laugh. And especially because it's directed very earnestly, but when you have a dog like pawing at the empty clothes of its former owner, that did raise a smile. And some of the acting on the plane is really bad.
Yes.
Do you want to do a little quiz about Easter?
Sure.
Yeah, an Easter quiz.
Okay, well, seeing as it's Easter, we tend to stuff ourselves with chocolate and paint paint eggs with colourful paints, but we forget that there is a religious side to the holiday. So I've got a few religious-themed Easter questions.
This is unfair. This is Sol's favourite holiday because it's a zombie holiday.
Well, we'll see out of the two of you who has been paying the most attention to Left Behind and can answer these religious Easter questions. I think we're going to do back and forth here. So, Alan, you will be first.
Ooh.
A procession is a procession headed by which symbolic object?
A crucifix.
I will accept that. I would have also accepted a cross.
Oh, right. Alan's
Right.
going to win this. I was thinking crustacean, lobsters, what?
Is that an official term, a procession? Or is that some
Apparently, yes, according to my quiz here,
don't
which
know
I
if that's-
googled.
Is
I
that
don't know
like
if that's in the
Catholic
Bible.
Church, though, or is that like modern Americans sort of making up a...
Who knows? Okay, Sol. At the Last Supper, what food did Jesus liken to his body?
bread?
Correct. Right, we're one apiece. Okay, Alan. How many days does Lent last for?
40.
Yes, correct.
Everything's 40 days in the Bible. It's just a sort of generic thing.
Yeah. Sol,
Yeah.
what day precedes Ash Wednesday?
Pancake day.
Pancake Tuesday.
Alan!
Pancake Day.
That
What?
was Sol's question.
No, it
Well,
is,
that's
isn't
why
it?
I gave a joke answer instead of the real one.
Is it
Oh.
Shrove Tuesday? Whatever the
Well,
Tuesday
yes,
is.
I would have also accepted Pancake Day.
Is that in the Bible?
I think it is actually because they used to all of these.
No, it isn't.
Is it not? Oh. What? Why did we learn about it in school?
It was born out of the run up to Lent because it was like, right, let's eat up everything in the cupboards.
Right, Alan. How was Jesus fastened to the cross? Fashioned to the cross. Sorry, how was Jesus fastened to the cross?
In a sort of spread eagle position.
How was he fastened to it?
I don't know where you're pitching this because so far these questions have been extremely easy. So I'm assuming you mean nails through the wrists, but probably by
well
ropes if you're going to be more.
Yep, there we go. Yeah, you got it. Well done.
Calvin, do you know much about Christianity in the Bible? Because this is like the sort of questions you'd ask at a 7-year-old Sunday school quiz.
I thought I'd pitch it quite low, just to see.
I know you two are heathens. I'm educated in the way of the Christian.
One sec, let me, because there were degrees, there were categories to this, and I picked some easier ones because I thought, I don't want to go too hard on them, but right. Sol.
Yeah.
Maslenitsa or Shrovetide is an Eastern Slavic religious and folk holiday celebrated during the last week before which great event?
Before what? Sorry.
What is the great event that you celebrate?
I mean, is it when Jesus rose from the dead as a zombie?
Is that Lent? That's not Lent, is it?
No.
Oh, okay, then no, you got that one wrong.
Oh. Is Lent a great event? I thought Lent
No,
was a period
it's a
of...
40-day thing.
But the way it was worded, I thought we were talking.
It was a
about
very
what
odd,
it was,
oddly worded
like
question.
where it was placed, like what event in the Bible it took place before, like a great flood or something.
Yeah.
I don't think much of this quiz, one of the questions on this particular category is what is the name of Roger Rabbit's wife? Okay, we'll do a couple more. Alan, on what hill was Jesus crucified?
Oh.
Can I
want to say Golgotha.
Nope.
That's a different thing, isn't it?
What's Calvary? Is that?
You got it right.
Oh, nice.
Oh, well done. Sol, you can pull it back now
do I get
if
a
you
point for that?
Yes, you do. So
Yeah.
you can win if you get this one right.
Quite impressed with myself with that.
Which Mary was the first to speak to Jesus after he rose from the dead?
Oh, well, it's not the Virgin, the slutty Mary,
I'm gonna have to press you for a name.
Mary Magdalene.
Oh, you won.
Is that it?
Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Saul is the better Christian.
Yeah.
She went up to him and he went, "Non lo mi tangere," which means "don't touch me."
Is that true? Is that what he actually said?
Is it true, or is that what it says in the
Is
Bible?
that what it says he said in the Bible?
Yes. Well, it's the Latin version of what it
That's
says in the
weird,
Bible.
though,
It's
isn't
not
it? Why would he
it's
say
not.
that?
Because if she touched him, he's like an apparition. He's not real. It's because he's pure or something, and if she touched him, it would have made him impure.
She'd realise that it was all like some smoke and mirrors. She'd be like, "Oh man, this is a dirty trick."
And he's like going, "Woo!"
It was the equivalent of saying, "Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain."
It was very confusing at school when they tried to say he rose from the dead, but he's still dead. He's not alive. Should we rate?
Yeah. So I watched the Kirk Cameron film.
Oh, yeah.
It was awful. No story, bullshit, badly made, nothing happened. 1 out of 10. Just to get that out of the way. Really bad. So comparatively speaking, the Nicolas Cage big budget version is more enjoyable. I give it 3 out of 10.
Yeah, sort of the same sort of thing, really. There's some sort of interesting things there that aren't very well developed. 4 out of 10.
Oh, that's generous. I will go 3 out of 10 as well.
I think there's a whole load of potential in doing sequels based on this nonsense.
Yeah.
Because it's just make a film about the Rapture, just what some people do when the Rapture happens. It, doesn't have to have any of these characters in it. It can be set anywhere in the world.
Well, I like the idea of just setting a nice little emotional drama, like maybe a family drama set in, I don't know, Iraq or something. And then there's just a thing on the news like, some strange events in America where lots of people have disappeared. And it's just sort of not mentioned. You just get on with the film, the story you want to tell.
Yeah.
If we want to be more specific, how would you follow this film with following maybe the Nicolas Cage character?
Well, you have to have him, his daughter, and Chad Michael Murray back. And then, I don't really know, because, I mean, in a real world scenario, I think there'd be a couple of days of chaos, and then governments would, stabilise, and things would more or less go back to normal, just with less population.
That's it. It'd be chaos, and there'd be a lot of weird shit to deal with, but it wouldn't be... It would only be chaos insofar as my internet keeps going down more than normal. What do you mean my favourite takeaway place is closed? It would more or less be life as we know it, I think.
Yeah. Except for this whole thing that you were talking about earlier, Saul, about the Antichrist. I guess that's a big component. Because I don't really know, they don't mention the Antichrist in the film, do they? And the Nicolas Cage one. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's what you do next then. You have some devil figure?
World leader steps into... Yeah. But the thing is, how are you going to do that? Because for it to make sense, they need to be charming and appealing, which means that they can't just be a kind of Vladimir Putin type.
Don't they make specific reference in this film to 7 years of darkness or something like that?
Yeah, that is part of the Rapture. It's like a 7-year period that's kicked off whereby the Antichrist and Jesus shore up their armies and bring their armies together, and then they're going to have a big war. It's very Lord of the Rings, and that's why it's not in the Bible.
All the people who are raptured and taken to heaven, are they conscripted into the God Army, or
I think they just
bystanders?
I think they just chill out.
It's just angels against demons.
I don't know. I think depending what various depiction you're going with, I think sometimes Satan can bring forth demons and shit to help him. I mean, like I say, I don't think it's got any real basis on anything, so it's just down to whatever Christian J.R. Tolkien equivalent has is writing.
You could go into like a Civil War thing. Yeah, make it that if you've been raptured, you're on God's soldiers. Those who aren't are on Devil's soldiers. Nicolas Cage in a suit of armour. My pitch is set up an elaborate thing outside Nicolas Cage's house so that he thinks the rapture's happened and just film him with secret cameras and then occasionally throw actors at him to like pretend to do something. You know, just a very sort of Truman Show-esque kind of, he doesn't know. It's just Nicolas Cage.
I don't think you even need to do that. I think just film Nicolas Cage without him knowing and give us 90 minutes of that.
Well, if you know that show, that First Dates, where they just film them having dinner.
Yeah,
you just put Nicolas Cage, a secret, like he's having dinner with someone.
Oh my god!
Like having dinner with a lady. Put a secret camera on him and just see what he says to chat her up. That'd be amazing.
Oh my god, that'd be amazing. I like genuinely. If you just wired his house with cameras, it'd be amazing. I bet he gets up. I bet he like flexes in the mirror for a bit every morning, going, "Who loves you? I'm Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Kal-El, my son." I bet he does all that for about half an hour every morning. Then he probably cracks open an egg and drinks it, and then like punches the air, thinking he's Rocky or something. I bet he's I bet he is amazing to watch. His agent phones him up. Nick, we got this script. It's great. It's a drama about a poor farmer in the olden days who has to. Can I do it with a surfer California accent? No, you can't, Nicholas. I'm out. I'm not doing it. I would love to see a kind of Paul Feig directed buddy cop, Jason Statham and Nicolas Cage vehicle.
Yeah.
Although Paul Feig would probably only do it if it was like Nicolas Cage and I don't want to say Melissa McCarthy. It seems too obvious.
But that's it. It's like Bruce Willis and Tracy Morgan, and it's like you've got to. Nicolas Cage is going to be the one who doesn't quite understand comedy and and doesn't know how to improvise. Although I imagine he can improvise, it'd just be completely fucking mental. Yeah,
I'm a sexy cat.
Thank you for listening, and if you'd like to support the podcast, then why not go to patreon.com/dimreturns, where for just $1 a month you can get extra content such as our discussion of the television show The Good Place, which is all about a more non-Christian idea of the afterlife. And if you don't like spending money, just hop onto iTunes and give us a rating on there. Every little helps. See you next week.